What are the top 5 things I see overlooked when installing a wood fence? Stick around and we'll find out. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a bonus just for you. But before we dig into this, if you like this content, if you find it enjoyable or heck, even entertaining, it would mean the world to us if you gave it a like. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And when you do, be sure to hit that notification bell so that YouTube lets you know when we have new content uploaded each and every week. With all that being said, let's dig into it. This is Joe Everest, the fence expert. My family's been perfecting their way of building fence for over 60 years, 3 generations. While there's more than one way to build a fence, I'm here to share with you our way. All right, one of the things that's rarely considered before building a fence is going to be, what do you do with the dirt? Where does it go? But if you think about it, if you're installing a fence around a typical sized backyard, you're going to generate a lot of dirt. The dirt's got to come out so the post and concrete can go in, but what do you do with it? Where does it go? When you really boil it down, the dirt has 2 options. It can either stay or it can go. Now, if the dirt stays, it's typically easier to spread it along the fence. In this case, the fence was raised up off the ground so it can have a nice level top, and the dirt was filled in underneath the fence so that it's still nice and close to the ground. Now, the dirt could have also been raked into the yard so that it incorporated itself into the yard, or it could have been left on a customer's dirt pile they may have had already going, or the dirt can go. Now, if the dirt goes, there's typically a fee associated with that. The contractor's gonna have to pay someone to take the dirt, someplace to dump the dirt. So the less expensive option is always gonna be leave the dirt here. The one thing I don't wanna see is I don't wanna see dirt mounted up around this post. First and foremost, it's unsightly. You wanna see a nice flat yard. You don't wanna see mounds at every single post. And if it's a wood post, you really don't want that excess moisture surrounding the post. If the dirt's gonna stay here, like I said, I'd like to see it either spread along the bottom of the fence to fill in any low spots, raked into the yard to incorporate it into the yard, or left on a customer's dirt pile. You know, another thing that rarely gets thought about until it's time to install the fence is gonna be irrigation heads. Now, typically in an established yard, the head is below grass level, so you don't see it, you don't even think about it. But when the contractor comes to install the fence, there's a good chance they might hit an irrigation line. And that's because even if the public utilities are notified, they come out and they flag and mark all the utilities, the irrigation is actually gonna be a private utility and it's not gonna be marked. So there's really, without digging this head up and tracing the line itself, there's really no great way of knowing exactly where the irrigation lines are throughout the yard. Now, when they're installing this fence, the contractor didn't hit an irrigation line, but had they hit the irrigation line, they typically wouldn't be responsible for that irrigation line. It's typically in the contract that they're not responsible for unmarked utilities in the yard. Now, this head was actually in line with the fence, which is fairly typical. So what they did was when the contractor installed the fence post and the customer knew exactly where this fence was gonna go, they then had an irrigation specialist come in and move the head away from the fence. But yeah, so another thing that people just rarely think about is gonna be irrigation heads. Now, the best way to figure out exactly where these are gonna be, kick on your system, have a handful of marking flags or sticks, stakes, etc. Kick on your irrigation, let those heads pop up and mark every single head so that at least as the contractor's installing your fence, he at least knows where those heads are. He's not gonna run equipment over it. He's not gonna hit it with an auger, that sort of thing. Like I said, unfortunately, there's not a great way of locating these underground lines that run from head to head or from the supply line into the irrigation head. You know, another thing that pops up during the installation of a fence that's easy to overlook is gonna be nails. So what I'm talking about specifically is nails that either protrude through the 2x4 or above or below the 2x4. If the crew installing the fence doesn't do a thorough walk around after installing the fence, that could be easy to miss. Easy way to check for it is just to look above and below your 2x4, look down the 2x4. I typically just look down the line of 2x4s. I'm looking for nails above, below, or nails through. It's important to check on that because the pointy end of the nail is gonna be sticking out, and typically fences are installed for kids and pets. You don't want a sharp nail around kids or pets, so always check the fence. It's easy to overlook a nail coming through the 2x4 or above and below the 2x4. Now, another thing these guys did that I love to see is they followed the terrain as closely as possible. Since they built the fence on site, they built it piece by piece. They were able to keep this fence as close to the ground as possible while maintaining a fairly straight top, meaning that as this terrain fell pretty significantly from one post to the other, rather than keep the fence straight and stair step it, they were able to install the 2x4 in a way that followed the terrain, plumb each picket as it got put up, and ultimately have a custom and really finished look to the fence. You know, one thing that's not considered before installing the fence is going to be the proper protection of ornamental trees and landscape. So luckily these trees were far enough away from the fence that they really didn't come into contact with the equipment and with the guys building the fence. They did a great job of not damaging the tree, leaving the landscape around the tree undisturbed. A lot of times we see trees that are closer to the fence though. If the trees are going to stay, I've seen contractors wrap the tree up in a sheet. That way the tree can still breathe, but is keeping these limbs up and away from the construction equipment that's installing the fence. A lot of times clients will actually want to cut out trees and bushes, landscape to make way for a fence. And the question is, well, how much room do you need? Typically, a good rule of thumb is I'd like to see enough space between any trees or bushes, landscaping, and the fence so that a full-size person could comfortably walk between the two. It gives the installers plenty of room to install the fence. It gives the trees enough room away from equipment that they're not getting damaged. It just really creates a nice buffer zone for the trees and for the fence. One of the aspects of the fence that I see overlooked probably the most is going to be proper sizing of their double gates. Specifically, are these gates big enough to bring through whatever it is you want to bring into your backyard year after year? For example, in the spring, are they big enough to bring in a truck and trailer to remulch your landscaping? Another thing I see a lot is we install these fences in summer when people's boats are on the lake. And then in the fall, when the boat gets pulled out and they go to bring the boat to the backyard for winter storage, gate's not quite big enough. So we end up coming back out, setting another post, installing a bigger gate for an additional expense. This is something we talk to our clients about pretty consistently, pretty thoroughly and often. Make sure these gates are as big as they need to be for whatever it is coming into this backyard. And there you have it. The most common things I see overlooked when installing a wood fence. If you're a fencing contractor, keeping these tips in mind will make sure that you have incredibly satisfied clients. If you're a homeowner, either having a fence installed or installing it yourself, keeping these tips in mind will make sure that you are incredibly satisfied with your fence for years or heck, generations to come. For now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.